Organizations are human systems, so organizational transformation won't occur without leadership transformation. Welcome to the 2021 Agile Human Factors event by Experience Agile. My name's Pete Behrens, founder of the Agile Leadership Journey and 30-year veteran in leading and being led, coming to you from beautiful Boulder, Colorado. I want to encourage you to join my session on how to be a more adaptive leader to shape culture from any seat within the organization. So let's start with a story of Microsoft. In the past 7 years, Microsoft has been brought back from the brink of irrelevance, both financially and culturally. Now, in the year 2000, Bill Gates had Microsoft at the top of their game, developing a competitive culture that crushed their competition, such as Netscape and Apple, and anyone else encroaching upon their Windows, Office, or internet browser landscape. But over the next 14 years, this once winner was starting to lose in markets such as mobile, search, and cloud. And they were financially stagnant and culturally infighting. Now, from 2014 to 2019, Microsoft has made a remarkable recovery with over $1 trillion market valuation and probably one of the wealthiest publicly traded companies in the world today. How did Microsoft turn their ship around to become one of the top performing companies in the world today? Well, let's meet their CEO, Satya Nedella.
Your first child was born with cerebral palsy. He is now 21 years old. So how did you realize that was going to change your life, and how have you dealt with that issue?
Yeah, even I was 29 years old when Zane, our son, was born. And if you had even asked me maybe even an hour before he was born what was going through my head, it was all about, oh, is the nursery going to be ready? What's going to happen to our weekends now we have a son? And when will Anu, my wife, get back to a job, and so on. But obviously everything changed that night. He was born because of an undetected in utero distress, asphyxiation, with severe brain damage, and that led to cerebral palsy, and he's quadriplegic now. The first, I would say, David, maybe even 2 years or more even, I was more about, like, why did this happen to me? What happened to us? And all of these plans that I had are now all been thrown up in the air and changed. Whereas Anu, my wife, what came naturally to her as a mother was, she said, okay, I'm not going back to my job. I'm going to really care for my son, drive him around for the, therapy after therapy. And I watched that. Without schooling me, I got schooled that nothing happened to me. What happened was to my son, and that it was time for me to understand that, realize that, see life through his eyes, and then do my duty as a father. That, to me, perhaps, it didn't come in one moment. It's something that I think took time. But as I figured it out, it changed me, both as obviously a parent, but also who I am today and how I approach everything.
And your son lives with you now.
Yes.
And one of the qualities that you say you got from all this was empathy, and that the result of having empathy made you a better CEO and a better person. Is that fair? Yeah,
in fact, when I look at empathy, and most people think empathy is just something that you reserve, for your life and your family and your friends or what have you. But the reality is, I think it's an existential priority for a business. Because if you look at it, like, what is our business? Our business is to meet unmet, unarticulated needs of customers. There is no way our innovation to meet unmet, unarticulated needs is going to come about if we don't listen, not just listen to the words, but go deep to understand what the needs are behind it. So I think empathy is core to innovation. And life's experience, if you listen and you learn from, teaches you. I wouldn't claim, as I've sort of even talked about it, with any innate capability of empathy that I was born with. If anything, it's life that has taught me. And if anything, my pursuit is every year is there growing sense of empathy for people around me?
Now, Nedella has been quite open about his personal transformation as a father and as a spouse and how that's transformed his leadership. He describes how empathy in his personal life has translated to empathy for the customer. But I believe in reading his books and listening to his talks, it's much deeper than this. It's about reframing everything that we hold as true or right and challenging what has worked in the past to change what's needed in the future. Now, from a strategic perspective, Nedella radically shifted Microsoft's culture from a competition to collaboration. Now, rather than fighting Apple, Salesforce, Google, and many others, he developed partnerships and collaborated with them. He was vulnerable in going on stage with many of these companies at their large user conferences and join their leaders to talk about how they will port many of their applications to their platforms. Equally, he built a collaborative culture internally working rather than fighting each other. Now, you might be saying to yourself, okay, great. Satya Nedella, CEO, all the power in the world to make these changes. Who am I? Mere director, mere architect, mere, vice president, mere scrum master. Who am I to make a difference such as this? It's true, top-level leaders like Satya Nedella shape culture more broadly. They have a profound positive and sometimes negative impact on organizational culture. But local leaders, like you, shape culture more acutely. It's more direct. In fact, most employees don't leave because of their CEO in the corporate culture. They leave because of their immediate manager and their local culture. Now, one way to view this is think of culture like a shadow. So if the organization were a person, the shadow is what reflects off of them. And so as we think about someone like Satya Nedella, we're seeing him casting a very broad shadow, impacting a massive part of the organization. But it's local leaders who cast a more acute shadow, the more direct influence over those people working in that organization. Now I want to introduce Travis. Travis is a director. He is not in charge of their company. In fact, he's not even in charge of an agile transformation his organization is under. Now here's Travis speaking on our Relearning Leadership podcast.
We know who we are and we want to move forward and just get the job done. But I found it invigorating and energizing to kind of dig deeper with how do I become a better leader? And I use that term a lot now of how do I show up to others? And then considering what do they want to hear from me? What is it they are seeking? Those that I'm leading, how can I help them do their best work, be empowered? Having the growth mindset is huge, being not afraid to fail, but it really is having that courage to kind of step out and take the risk and try something. If it doesn't work, okay, let's learn from it and let's try something different. The whole discovery for me was a greater sense of self-awareness and understanding other perspectives. I'm super passionate, and how does that come off? Well, how do I show up to people when I'm overly passionate? And so I think, gaining greater self-awareness was probably the biggest growth area for me. If you take care of the people and they're excited and invigorated about the work, it's going to get done, right? I really take the empathy of tell me the story, what's going on. There's usually something behind the thing, right? If there is an issue at work, there's probably some issue outside of work that's impacting the individual, and understanding what that is and what the story is and saying, how can I help you? I love that sentence. How can I help? That opens up so many possibilities as a leader for you to just listen to see how you can take care of that person. Realize why you're there. People need to know you care about them, not just about the work, but them as people. And so I think one of the nuggets I've taken away in this journey is that don't necessarily talk about changing culture. Just talk about doing the right thing.
Do the right thing. I love that statement. But what does it mean? To Travis, it means authentic leadership with purpose, perspective, and presence. We see Travis's passion for a different way forward. Yet Travis gains perspective through his relationships and balances his power and his presence for influence. Everyone leads in some way in their organization. Now, whether that's by role or title or by passion of something that drives you. Travis was not in charge of his organization. Travis was not even in charge of the transformation that his organization was doing. In fact, he was a subject matter expert with some agile experience who was on a task force to change the way the organization worked. Yet Travis dramatically impacted and influenced his organization through the relationships he made and the interactions he had. In fact, Travis received a thank you note from senior leadership in the organization, and I'll read it to you now. It says, Travis, Stephen Covey once said, I am personally convinced that one person can be a change catalyst, a transformer in any situation, any organization. Such an individual is the yeast that can leaven an entire loaf. It requires vision, initiative, patience, respect, persistence, courage, and faith to be a transforming leader. You have been a change catalyst for our company. You had the vision for the way agile teams would work, influenced our CEO and executive team, and executed that vision, transforming the way we work. As a result, our company is more resilient to change and able to adapt to an increasingly dynamic world. Travis shaped culture. He transformed himself to help transform his organization. In fact, listening to the podcast even further, which we didn't do here, Travis discusses he was actually part of 2 programs at the same time focused on his own leadership. Organizations are human systems, and only through human change will we see them transform and change. So if you desire an organization which is more effective, impactful, meaningful, even agile, are you ready to lead? Are you ready to transform yourself in order to lead? In my session, we are going to focus on how anyone, even you, can transform yourself to transform your organization, to help you become a better leader regardless of your seat in that organization. My name's Pete Behrens, and I invite you to join me to discuss the 5 fixations of adaptive leaders. And that seems like a bit of a dichotomy. Fixations of adaptiveness, a bit of a play on words. Yes, it's true that agile leaders need to be focused. And we're going to be talking about what those focus points are to be a more effective adaptive leader. We'll explore how to reframe your thinking to shape the culture from your seat in the organization. Thank you.